My name is Mike Long. I'm the league director for the North Carolina Interscholastic Cycling League, and this is what we call our Dirt Tour presentation. And basically, this is where we try to answer the questions around what is NICA, what is the league, what is a team, and what does it mean to coach or what does it mean to coach a team. Where we basically start from is, NICA's big hashtag they use on social media is more kids on bikes. And that's the ultimate goal of this organization, is getting kids out there riding bikes and exposing them to a healthy lifestyle, an active lifestyle. NICA itself NICA is short for the National Interscholastic Cycling Association. They're based in Berkeley, California. They are a youth development organization, and we promote mountain bike racing for grades 6 through 12, so that's middle and high school. NICA was formed back in 2009, and it has grown to now be 19 leagues in 18 states, which is interesting, seeing as this is an organization that started as a mountain bike club at Berkeley High School that eventually grew to be a league, and then 2 leagues, and then a national organization, and has been spreading across the nation since then. In 2015, we had 8,000 student athletes participate in the program, 395 teams, and the growth has been exponential. It's been amazing to watch I've been an observer of NICA for 5 years now, and it's been amazing just watching it just propagate and just grow. And if you have an interest in going to the national website, it's nationalmtb.org. So why are we doing this? Right? I think we all remember when we were little kids, a bicycle or some wheeled device was our first bit of freedom. I really have no real mountain bike background. Little girl on the left-hand side in a purple top, that's my daughter Laurel. Laurel got me into mountain biking. It's very, very interesting in the fact that, I used to skateboard a lot, and I keep up with it by watching videos on YouTube. And one day I'm watching a video, and these guys are mountain biking. It's one of those really well-produced things. Guys are flying through the air, music's going. I look over, Laurel is in 7, she's at my elbow, and I said, "So what do you think, sweetheart?" And she's like, "I want to do that, Daddy." I'm like, "Well, all right." And we got her a bike. She learned how to ride. We were riding trails, and one thing led to the other, and my little girl's racing and loving it. And mountain bike racing there hasn't been a whole lot of opportunities for little kids, particularly little girls. Where most overzealous dads content themselves with buying their kid way too much bike, I went about doing what I can to create cycling opportunities for her and kids like her. So NICA, we mentioned that NICA is a character building organization. I mean, most people look at NICA and they see a race league. It is definitely a race league. It's definitely a race program. But the primary driver is character building, based off the values of inclusivity, equality, strong mind, strong body, strong character. And we do that through a mountain biking program, cross-country mountain biking race program. And through that, we try to instill these values and ultimately help build solid kids with an emphasis on healthy activity and sportsmanship that they can take with them the rest of their lives. We are not about creating the world's next gold medalist cyclist. It's not our goal. However, it will be an outcome of this, because you're going to have kids, they're going to get super excited, they're going to take it to the next level, they're going to push, and they're going to push, and they're going to push. And some of those kids are going to get their start in NICA, and they're going to go out there and conquer the world. And already, right now, this year, we have, in the under 23 categories, the national champions and the kids that are winning World Cup races right now are NICA alumni, which is pretty cool to see. So mountain biking, interscholastic mountain biking, is a little bit different than most other sports. As most, I'm assuming I'm speaking to the choir, most folks that come to our tour stops are cycling people. But Interscholastic cycling, the NICA way, it's a team sport. A team sport that celebrates the individual. It's also an individual sport. No one's going to pedal that bike but you. But it's a sport that fosters community. And part of how this is achieved is that there's no such thing as a bench. Everybody rides, everybody scores, every finish counts. There is no tryouts. You show up and you want to take part, you take part. And there are no cuts. There's no elite team that gets to do everything and everybody else just sits on the sidelines. What's nice about this is that mountain biking will give kids who might not be interested in a mainstream sport the opportunity to participate in an activity that emphasizes personal growth and life lessons. It's interesting. My daughter was one of those kids that team sports didn't quite work for, but she found her niche in mountain biking. And for the kids who do have a niche in team sports and traditional sports that really like it, cycling is an outstanding cross-training opportunity. So a few key facts for some things that we've observed about NICA over the years. Again, kids, just by the growth alone, we're seeing that the kids are really enjoying the program. You've got 97% retention rate where they race, they get involved with it, and they say, I'm going to keep doing this. We've seen a 67% growth in female student athlete participation. So it's near and dear to my heart, being the father of a daughter. I am this other percentage. I am part of the 73 that my daughter's participation in just mountain biking in general inspired me to start riding bikes so I could ride with my daughter. We started this journey many years ago. She's now 13, having one bike in the house, and that was her little girl toy bike, And now I've got way too many. I think I have 11 at last count. And then there's the typical things that come along with this, right? Is increased physical fitness. Much like other sports, it helps kids focus and concentrate. It gives them an outlet that helps them channel their energies. So you're seeing kids that are getting better grades. You're seeing more kids that are going on to 4-year college institutions. We're also seeing that once you put kids in nature and enjoy nature, and nature's not an abstract thought, their respect for environments and other trail users and other people that are out there also goes up as well. As part of that stewardship, NICA has also partnered with IMBA, the International Mountain Biking Association, and REI to have a program called the Teen Trail Corps, which this goes along with our mountain bike program that helps teach kids the trails don't just magically happen. All these trail networks across North Carolina, the vast majority of them came into being by the efforts of dedicated volunteers, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and building relationships, both at the local and the state level, to make these things happen. And we believe very strongly that it's not enough for a kid to just to go out and enjoy nature. They really need to understand where these resources come from so they can understand them better, appreciate them better, and advocate for them. There are a lot of pressures on our public spaces and private spaces. It'd be much better to have kids who understand that if they're not going to speak up, these opportunities go away. And this is built really around the IMBA's key tenets of speak, build, respect, and ride. We're really excited about that. As I said, this is what NICA looks like today. 19 leagues in 18 states. And all of this came from one little high school mountain bike club. So let's talk about NICA in North Carolina and kind of narrow it down a little bit. We are a nonprofit 501c3. We are under NICA's umbrella. We were chartered in September 2015. We are governed by NICA. NICA is our NBA, NFL, as it were. And they provide program administration and oversight. Starting our league, we are not going to be a part of the North Carolina High School Athletic Association for a variety of reasons. The big reasons are around cost and some of the restrictions that they put on sports. Although we are modeled 100% after any other interscholastic sport, this is something that we might be pursuing further down the road, but it's not going to be a year 1 or year 2 thing. Our overarching goal is to have statewide 250 kids and at least 30 teams participating by the end of our season in May 2017. All organizations have mission statements. This would be ours. To enable every North Carolina team to develop strong minds, strong body, and strong character, lifelong participation in cycling. And then we go down and break that out a little bit. So again, as I spoke of earlier, filling a niche for students who don't normally jive with your traditional sports, and an additional outlet for kids to do. Getting kids outside. We support diversity at all levels. Promoting trail building efforts and environmental awareness and stewardship. Improving focus and academic performance. And again, health and fitness in teens and their families. Again, we're trying to expose them to something new, something interesting that they could take with them for the rest of their life. So, coming down a little more of a level here, like every other interscholastic sport, this has a season, has a definite beginning, and has a definite end. And outside of the season, there's not really going to be any league activity, right? This isn't going to be how some sports like club soccer or BMX runs January 1st to the end of the year. That's not the way this is going to operate. So this is how our timeline looks. September 10th and 11th of this year, we're going to be holding a Leader Summit. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. That is our training and certification for team adult leaders and coaches. We don't really differentiate too much between a leader and a coach. That is really where, if you're interested in starting a team, that's where you're going to need to be in September. October 15th, that's when registration opens, and that's the beginning of the preseason. That's where the individuals who have gotten themselves certified at whatever level they've taken themselves to step forward and say, I am Coach Mike, and the team that I'm going to coach is called the Hopewell High School mountain bike team or the Huntersville area composite team. A little more on that later. And at that moment, Coach Mike and his team is now covered under NICA insurance, and they can begin team activities. These activities in the preseason, is what we're called this time, are going to be more like recruiting activities, and you're allowed to do 7 recruiting activities. Keep in mind, practice hasn't started yet. So those recruiting activities would be things like try-it-out rides, information sessions, skills clinics, things to just get out there and reach ridership and reach kids to get them involved. December 1st is when full practice begins, not before. The big question that most people ask me is, well, what does practice look like? Well, that's going to depend on your team. It's going to depend on your kids and just the area that you're at, right? Please keep in mind that full practice does not mean on day one you're getting a bunch of kids, you're grabbing their bikes, you're going to your nearest trail, and you're going for a 10-mile ride. Not likely. Keep in mind that, like in basketball, your practice isn't always going out there playing basketball. Sometimes it's physical fitness, sometimes it's learning skills, sometimes it's weight training. It really just depends. And some of those pieces that are going to be presented to you at the Leader Summit, there's a question of, well, how often do teams practice? Again, that's going to depend. There's no rule that says you have to do a certain amount. We just ask that you keep it reasonable and fun for these kids and not a boot camp, right? There are teams that they practice twice a week and that's it. And I've seen teams that are a little more into this, and they'll ride like 3 times a week or practice 3 times a week during the week and then a weekend ride. I think that's the high end of things. So again, that's going to depend on the team, on the coach, on the resources, and the kids involved. March through May is when race season begins. So you can see through December to early March, there's going to be a lot of time there to get these, to develop skills in these kids, to develop physical fitness. It's not a scenario like a lot of traditional racing right now, where if there's any training going on, it's totally on you. You just sign up for a race day of and drop a kid in there and say, okay, go race. We're preparing these kids and getting them ready to have a good race experience. Racing will begin in early March. We intend this to be, we're planning on a 5 race per season. Racing will occur on Sundays. The races are weekend events. Think of these in the term of like a youth mountain bike festival. Right around midday on Saturdays when we expect teams to arrive, there'll be a period where the trail will be or the course will be open for pre-riding. We will have some other activities around that. And then we intend to have like a mixer for the various teams that evening. Now, keep in mind, there's no requirement that says you have to be there the entire weekend. I know people are busy, and giving up 5 weekends a year for some folks is tough. There's also no requirement that you have to attend, your team has to be at every single race. I would encourage you to come for the whole weekend. I would encourage you to attend all the races. But again, the emphasis here is getting kids out there and doing it. We're pretty confident that once you go and you do a race or two, you're going to get the bug, you're going to love it, the kids are going to love it, and the kids are going to be asking, well, when's the next one? How soon can we do it? We're racing in spring primarily to minimize competition with similar sports. It allows you to train and race in cooler weather as well. Because if we were a fall league, the season would actually start like mid-June, and that would be really, really rough. Race venues. These are our proposed race venues. We're trying to lock these down right now. We have most of them confirmed. As you can see, we're trying to do a mountains to sea type of a scenario. Right now, we're probably about a week away from getting these things totally finalized, because the venues have to be certified by NICA to ensure it meets our standards. Risk management is gigantic for us. Number one, we're managing risk. Number two, we're making it fun, right? And what you're going to see is a lot of the kids that come into the NICA program are actually very new to racing, very new to mountain biking. So if you've raced before and mountain biked before and you've seen some of the technical courses out there, we try to make sure these courses are fun and they're challenging, but they're not overly technical. And some technicality is okay so long as it is low speed. We're trying to keep the climbing so it's not excessive for a kid. But ultimately, what we're hoping for is that a relatively new rider can ride all of the course and only have to get off and walk because of technicality a total of 4 or 5 times on the course. Now, granted, if you just don't have the heart, you don't have the legs and the lungs to climb a big hill and you have to walk it, that's okay. But if you see like a rock garden and it intimidates you and you have to get off the bike, that's what we're trying to minimize. But ultimately, what makes a race is who else shows up in the other competition that's there, and it'll be good. It'll be good. And so we're in the final stages of our certification and securing venues. We will have all those locked down probably by mid-July. Have those announced. So let's talk about teams. There's basically 3 types of teams, and really the first 2 are the ones that matter the most. The first is the official school club, and this is primarily full-time students from a single school. School approval is required, and that basically means you can use the school mascot, the school name, you can recruit from the school. Now, keep in mind that because we're not a high school athletic association member, our teams will be considered club sports at most schools. So that puts us in the same vein as Girls on the Run, Cross Country for Youth, programs such as that. What's really good about this is it really doesn't require anything of the school. You know, they're going to ask questions like, well, how much does it cost us? Nothing. What about insurance? Insurance is covered under NICA. Really, they just have to be comfortable with our program. They have to be comfortable with you. And all they have to do is say yes, and it's handled. Now, team formation is a local grassroots effort. The league itself is not going to be standing up teams. It'll be local coaches, local folks that have a passion for this, that want to stand up a team, and we'll help you do that. We'll help you have the conversation with the schools. We'll help facilitate all of that and give you what you need to make that happen. The other type of team is, say for example, you don't have enough kids at a school, or you have a school that's just really weirded out by the idea of kids racing mountain bikes and have visions of the Red Bull Rampage going through their heads, and it scares them off. And that happens. You can also do a composite team, and these would be full-time students from more than one school. So in my case, the high school closest to me would be Hopewell High School. If Hopewell High School decides that they don't want any part of this, we would then go to the town and create Huntersville Composite, which is basically a team that's based off of the geographic area. The nice thing about this is you don't have to ask anybody for permission. You just say, we're doing it, you stand it up. But it also becomes a little more challenging to recruit kids because you no longer have the vehicle of a school, right? So one of the things that we were trying to do is we're doing our Leaders Summit and get things happening early enough so that coaches could be ready for Club Week early in the school year, to have a booth there and say, hey, here's what's going on. Composite teams are designed to be temporary. The idea here is that you have a core group of kids from a bunch of different schools. They come together and begin to form teams, and at some point you'll have 5 kids from school A, 5 kids from school B, 5 kids from school C, and the hope is that they would eventually split off and form a team at their school. I know this says 2 years. Again, if conditions aren't right, the bias is to keep the team together and get the kids out there and have the opportunity. So it's not a scenario where your team is, if you do a composite route and you're successful but can't get into schools, then we're going to break you guys up. That's not what's going to happen. It's just the goal with NICA as a whole is school-based teams, if that's something that can happen in your communities. The third type of team would be called an independent team. This is basically full-time students from a single school. The school doesn't want any part of it. The club creates its own name and mascot. A lot of times independent teams are teams that are in a state that does not have a NICA league. Most likely you're going to be an official school club or a composite team. But it is possibly independent as well. It's really however you want to roll it. There's really the benefits from these. If you say we're Hopewell High, we're the Hopewell High team, but you got to use a different name. You got to do a mascot. It's just not quite the same. Homeschool athletes have a lot of options. They can participate on composite teams. They can form county-based homeschool teams. If they're in the attendance zone of a school that has a team, they can also race on that team. So there's a lot of opportunity there for those kids. So competition. This is grades 6 through 12, aged around 12 to 19. Boys and girls compete separately. And we have 8 categories of competition at the high school level, just like other high school sports. You have freshman, sophomore, junior varsity, varsity. Teams compete against teams. So what that basically means is in our inaugural season, spring of 2017, there will be a freshman, sophomore, junior varsity, and varsity champions, both a boys champion and a girls champion in each division. And there will be a championship team. So teams accrue points based off of the finishing places of their ridership, and then the teams actually compete with teams in that way. Middle school is fairly new for NICA, and as a national organization, we're working through what that means, and there's several models that are going on right now. Most likely what North Carolina is going to do is our categories for middle school will probably simply be by age. 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, boys and girls, and a team level competition. So you would have like a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade series champion and a middle school team champion. Middle school scores are not going to be blended with high school scores. There's also another way in which a student athlete can compete, which be as an independent rider. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's no one else around you and you don't have enough people to form a team, you can race as an independent. Again, the bias is to get teams together. So the buts. There's always the questions of, but I haven't done this and I haven't done that. That's okay. All of it is okay. If your child has never raced a mountain bike before, that's great. Less than 10% of student athletes have ever raced a mountain bike. My daughter is an extreme outlier. You know, there's going to be a lot of kids out there who've never done it before. If you've never ridden a mountain bike before, you know, there's only a quarter of our student athletes have actually ridden a mountain bike in a trail situation. You know, so you've got a lot of kids here that are going to come into this just net new. Then there's also the question of, I don't have a mountain bike. We're working diligently right now to develop scholarship programs for student athletes that need assistance. There are discounts on bike and equipment that are also available to NICA teams and student athletes and coaches. Some of these are quite substantial. But really the key to this is I've said from the beginning to our core team is the more something costs, the more kids you're leaving out, right? So we're going to do everything we possibly can to make sure that a child who wants to participate can participate, and we try to make money less of a barrier. I mean, money's always going to be there; it's always going to be an issue, but we're going to do what we can to make that to alleviate that as best we can. Again, focus on youth development, no team tryouts, no team cuts. What's very interesting about the NICA program is although it is primarily known as a mountain bike race program, student athletes are encouraged, but they're not required to race. If a kid just wants to come out and be a part of a team, ride the bike, go to the practices, that's just fine, because that's going to achieve the goals of what we're trying to do. The kid's going to come in there, they're going to have a coach that's going to mentor them, they're going to learn the skills, they're going to work through character development, they're going to learn and love to ride the bike, and they're going to build that bias toward healthy activity. That's a success, whether or not they ever race. We talked about every score and every score counts in team results. Something that's also interesting about this is that anytime you get a team or a club or something like that that forms, there's a lot of roles for people to play within those clubs. And for the students, an interesting thing that happened is it's actually in Minnesota, which is home of there's a league in Minnesota, and there was a group of kids that they loved to ride, they loved the mountain bike, they didn't really care to race, they were kind of weirded out by it, and they went to the coach and said, you know, we can't race, what can we do? And it's one of those coaches, just an innovative person that their league director got wind of this in Minnesota and connected them with Park Tools, which makes mountain bike, makes cycling tools and equipment for bike mechanics. And Park Tool came in, did a workshop for these kids, and taught these kids how to be race day mechanics, which is pretty neat. And it just kind of goes to show that you have a team. There's a lot of things you can do. You can be a race mechanic. You can be a team or equipment manager, photographer, race day support. There's a lot of opportunity for growth for kids, and many ways they can participate. I'm going to pause for a second and ask, do you have any questions for me so far? Or would you like me to keep rolling?
You're fine to keep going for me.
Awesome. So let's go into coaching here. The biggest thing everybody thinks when they say, I want my kid to be a part of this, or I want to help kids be a part of this, but I don't have a coaching certification. I don't have a background in mountain biking, or I'm not a really good mountain biker. That's perfectly fine as well. I have no coaching background in mountain biking other than just learning as my daughter rode faster than me. You don't have to be a great rider. I'm not a great rider. She blows me out of the water on a regular basis. NICA and the league will provide you the training and guidance that you will need. We talk about risk management, coaching and skills training, tips and tricks, if I could speak, how to start a team, videos, presentations, checklists, contacts. These are all things that we can help you do. And again, my background with working with kids came from Boy Scouts many years ago, and I can tell you when you're working with kids, it's very, very rewarding. It's something that will stick with you as to your life. It'll stick with these kids the rest of their life. It'll be a period you're really going to look back on fondly. The other thing that's interesting is we talked about NICA with 8,000 student athletes, almost 400 teams. There are thousands of coaches around the country that have gone through the same process of starting a team. They are a great resource, and we can connect you with a coach someplace, another state, that will be willing to talk to you and answer your questions. And you come into a community of coaches nationwide that are all excited about getting more kids on bikes, and they get excited when you get excited, and they just love to see the kids out there doing stuff, and they're willing to help. So there's a whole community of folks that really want to reach out and help you. And a lot of this training and guidance, all this training comes at the Leaders Summit. And please notice it's called Leaders Summit and not Coaches Summit. It's for anyone who wants to help with a team. What you might find when you form a team is maybe you're the leader of the team, but you're leading a team from a logistical standpoint of making things happen and making sure they have what we need. But you might have someone else who's actually the head coach of the team, who's actually really working on the skills and imparting that knowledge to the kids. It really depends on how you want to work this. So September 10th and 11th, this is a weekend event at Burr Mill Park in Greensboro. It's a 1.5 days classroom, half a day on the bike. Cost right now is $125. It was until July 1st. We've extended it to August 1st. After that, it becomes $150. And we have reserved a room block at a local hotel to help drive down those costs. Now, the thing to keep in mind about these leader summits is what you're going to get for that $125 is you get the NICA Coaches Manual, which is about a $30 book. You get the How to Teach Mountain Biking Skills book, which is another $25, $30 book. And we actually are going to work with someone who is a very experienced coach, a lady named Andrea Dvorak, who's part of the Virginia League, has graciously offered to come down and help teach our skills session. And we'll teach you how to teach these bike skills to kids. Bruce Martins, who is the head of coaching licensing for NICA, is going to be there as well from Minnesota. And basically, you're going to get a lot of information about how to start a team, how to work with these kids, how to work with these skills, but also you'll also get to know North Carolina team a little bit better and the other coaches a little bit better. And registration is open, and now we've been really encouraging folks to go out there and register and get signed up for it, because that's really going to be a key component. We mentioned the registration is open now. Typically, when this presentation is in a room full of people, this is where I encourage people to use their phone and scan the QR code. Just being a little silly, because I'm a silly guy. But if you visit our website or on Facebook, there are links there that will take you to registration for our Leader Summit. Coaching certification. So these are some of the things, this is what you're required to do to be certified as a coach in NICA. Now, the first thing that you need to understand is, as a first-year team, that first column, that's really all you need to do. You need to have at least one registered general volunteer person acting as head coach. The second thing that's really important to notice about here is when it says general volunteer level 1, ride leader level 2, assistant coach level 3, head coach level 4. NICA is in a process of changing that nomenclature because that's confusing. This implies that to be a head coach of a team, you need to be at level 4. That's not true. You can be a head coach for a first-year team at the general volunteer level, but the expectation is, as years go on, you will step up your level of training. So keep in mind that these labels are not a one-for-one match to the roles that people perform in the operation of a team. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now keep in mind, like the background check, you can do that online right now. It costs around, there's a cost associated with that. The CDC concussion certification is an online class. You can do that right now. The annual waiver and the $25 annual fee, those are things that you would sign on October 15th when that goes live. So if you attend the Leader Summit and you take your first aid and CPR, you're going to be most of the way to a level 2 certification by the time your team actually forms and begins to practice. And by the very first race, you will definitely be at a level 2 certification, which is good. The risk management class and MTB 101, that's what we call the bike skills training. Those are taught during the Leader Summit. First aid and CPR is not a part of the Leader Summit yet. If you have something like a Red Cross certification, that counts. The other thing to keep in mind is, if you're currently in a position where you're working with kids and you're actually teaching mountain bike skills to kids, count those hours, document those. So long as they're documented that you've done it and someone can vouch that you've done it, we'll accept those, even now. Just keep in mind, when we say teaching bike skills to kids, we're actually talking about actual instruction. We're not talking about simply going for a ride for an hour and go, ooh, I got an hour, right? There's a difference between going for a ride and teaching skills. And this grid is available at the national ncdirttour website under the Coaches Licensing Program page.
Okay.
So how does all of this work? The first step is really knowing yourself, right? And defining what is your vision for your team, for your club, and knowing why you're doing this. If your goal is to get out there and create world champion cyclists, this may not be the program for you, right? This comes before all of that, right? Do you want to have a school-based team where your kid goes to school? Do you not have a kid at all in this game, and you just want to help out as a coach on a team that exists? If you do have a team, where is it going to be located? How are you going to run this? Do you want like a really tightly well-run type of organization? Are you a little more bad news bears? You know, just know what your expectations are, right? And find people that align with your expectations to help you with this, because you really don't really want to go alone on this. And you're going to find parents. You're going to find parents who are going to get jazzed up, excited, and they want to be in there and they want to help you, right? But really, just understand where your own head is. Step 2 is, again, building that coaching team. So if you know you want to start a team or you want to be a part of a team, you need to assemble people that you can get along with, that you can work with, and that you have similar philosophies of how things are going to run. And that's really, really important, because ultimately, y'all are going to have to be the adults in this game, and you have to get together like adults, and it's so much easier when you have people that that are compatible with one another. So you find a mentor, recruit parents, find other cyclists you know that'd be jazzed up about this, and ask them to help you out. Big thing here, and we can't stress it enough, is attending the Leader Summit. We really want people to be there. I know we're hammering really hard. Could you simply go out there and just do the ride leader component, start a team for year 1? Yes, you could. But I expect to see every coach at a Leader Summit at least once. At least once. The next component is where are the kids, right? You have to think about recruiting riders and how are you going to make that happen? You know, you can if you're in a school, you can leverage students. You talk to parents, other cyclists, local bike shops. I know of coaches that put together really small flyers that they would carry in their backpack when they went riding at local trails. Anytime they saw a kid, it's like, hey, how old are you? Show this to your mom and dad, or they have a conversation with mom and dad. You know, if you're looking for a school-based team, it's really helpful if you can find an insider or a school administrator, someone who works at that school, or that is sympathetic to your cause, or even better yet, is a rider. You know, and then have a conversation around them, much like with your coaching team, and say, would you be willing to champion us to your school? The big thing to keep in mind is, since we're a club sport, probably if you're going to be in a school or you have a child that attends a school, probably the first thing for you to do right now is find out what are the rules around forming a club at that school. And that's something you can, if you're really motivated, you can do that now, and just contact the school, or better yet, have your kid contact the school and say, hi, my name is X. I'm going to be at X grade at your school, and I'd like to know, what do I have to know to start a club at the school, and get that first. And again, if you need help talking to administrators, we can help with that. So you've got people, you know why you're doing this, you've got a few people who are going to help you out, you've been to the Leader Summit, you think you know some kids that are going to take part, then you're going to want to meet, you want to talk to the student athletes, you're going to have an official meeting with the kids and say, this is what we plan on doing, this is requirements for participation, and get their input, because it's going to be ultimately it's going to be their club, it's going to be their team. It's not, this isn't Mike's league. This league belongs to the kids of North Carolina. The team, though you might be the leader of the team really needs to be, about the kids first and foremost. Parents and guardians, you really absolutely positively need to make sure you meet with these parents and guardians, introduce NICA, gain their commitment. And I'll tell you, from being involved in Boy Scouts for many years, I've run the gamut of parents. I've run the people that were so incredibly helpful. You don't know what you did right, but they're always there for you. And you also have parents that, if you're not careful, you'll never see them. They drop the kid off, and that's dangerous, right? So make sure that you talk to parents, you know who these parents are, you know who you're dealing with. Funding strategies. How are you going to pay for this? Because there are costs involved. And being a coach does not necessarily mean it all has to come out of your pocket just because of love, right? You think about how you're gonna cover those costs, and how deep do you really want to go into having a team, right? And like other sports, you can get sponsorships, you can talk to local bike shops, you can solicit donations. There's 101 ways to make money, to do good things for kids. All of those are really at your disposal. One of the key things to understand is Mike Eastwood, this gentleman is not on the call with us today. Mike Eastwood is our coaching and team development director. Mike has a very unique background in the fact that Mike is a high school guidance counselor. He has started a club at his local high school, and he's in the process of making that into a NICA team. So Mike is living that right now, and his role is he is your direct line of someone to talk to help facilitate that team formation, and also just be a sounding board, just talk you through things. I'm happy to do it as well, but that's Mike's role within the league. We'd all be happy to help you. Mike is there to help you out. Another thing we were looking at is that Mike Eastwood put together is, well, where is everybody? And one of the things that we've been doing is been reaching out to people that we've talked to at dirt tour stops and just in general to say, I'm excited about this and I want something to happen. And one of the things we've been doing is we've been dropping pins on a Google map, which can be reached from our website. And we're pinning people and their contact information on the state where folks are excited about this and want to start teams. The intention here is sometimes you don't know who in the area is excited about what you're doing and wants to be a part of it. And this is basically us attempting to bring people together and say, hey, I want to start a team, and there's a guy across town I didn't know, and there's a lady on the other side of town I didn't know. Maybe we can get together, have meetings of the minds, and go, let's pool our resources. This is awesome. Let's start a team, and then drop a pin on the map for wherever your team is going to be. So anyone contacts us and say, I have a kid. He's in Greenville. He wants to be on a team. Where are the teams? We go, well, you know what? You can talk to these folks and help bring people together. And again, this is strictly voluntary. We're only going to put information out there where people say, yes, it's okay. Costs. The old money question. For student athletes, the registration fee for student athletes is $50 a year. Team dues are variable, and we're going to talk a little bit about that when we talk about team costs. So I'm going to get to that in a moment. Per race registration fees, we really don't know how much it's going to cost per race yet. We're still working on that. We probably won't know that until later in the year. But we're guesstimating it's going to be around $35 to $50 per race, 5 races per season. Our goal is to hit the low end of that. And if you've raced mountain bikes before, you know that's the range. You're going to pay anywhere between 35 is a fair price for most races. We're trying to keep it away from the 50 though. Student athlete equipment. Well, this is really variable. The kids are going to need a helmet. They're going to need a bike at a bare minimum. Any other safety equipment, it's kind of up to you. And it's funny, when I first did this, they said, well, your bicycle is a one-time cost. And I showed that up there, and my wife laughed and laughed and laughed. Because my daughter started racing when she was 8. She's outgrown her bike every year. I'm really, really hoping that's over. The other question is, that I always throw out to the crowd is, and how much does the bike cost? Well, how much does your bike cost? Don't answer that. So the costs are really going to be very personal and very up to you of what do you need, or what does the student athlete need to be comfortable to ride. And again, I would challenge folks about what do they think is an appropriate race bike, because I've had people come in and go, well, a really good race bike's going to be at least $5,000. I'm not going to agree with that. I'm going to agree with that if you're an adult and seconds count. But for kids, as long as it functions well and it fits them and it's made of components that are of reasonable quality, they will be just fine. And again, NICA does have bicycle equipment industry deals. Some of these things are pro deals. I think the one that kind of struck me is that Trek and Specialized are both national level sponsors, and they give NICA athletes discounts on bikes. These are not just freebie discounts. They do expect you to represent the brand in return. However, Trek was like a 30% discount. It was dealer discounts. It was quite a substantial drop. And that's not just on some models of bikes. It's across the board. You have to. These are done through the dealers, so you'd have to find a local dealer to kind of help you out with that. And we can make that connection as well. So dues. So we've talked about what is your team going to be like, right? You can go the direction of we want it all. You know, we want a team trailer, we want branded tents and logo wear and race day equipment, food, all kinds of stuff, and that costs money. Or you can go the other direction. It's like we're just gonna get jerseys and a tent, lawn chairs, and we're good. Don't need all that stuff. Neither one is wrong. Of this list, matching jerseys is the only item that's required for the NICA rulebook. And when I say jerseys, I'm holding my fingers up and doing an air quote. This doesn't mean that you have to have some super nice pro-level race kit out there. When we say jersey, all we mean is that the team wears the same stuff so that they look like a team, have a uniform. You can spend the money and get nice jerseys, and we do have programs and suppliers that offer discounts to teams and really nice turnaround time. Podium Wear is actually a national level sponsor, some very nice stuff. You can go out and just have T-shirts printed that say team on them, you know, and so long as all your kids are wearing them during race day and race officials can look at them and go, oh, they're part of Team X, we're okay. So some of the other things about, so how do you determine this, right? If there are some teams that the cost to register a team for the first year is $150. That's a shared cost for the entire team. You could simply say the dues are, we take $150 and divide it by the number of kids. There are some teams that they figure out the math of how much does it cost per kid to register, to race, and to buy race equipment. Maybe they kick in a little bit of love to the coach for like gas money or something, or pay the coach, and they'll figure that all out and say, okay, every kid the race this year is going to be, and I'm making this up, $500. So we're going to go out there, we're going to fundraise that amount so that the only thing a kid has to do is pay the $50 fee to actually take part. And we're going to fundraise for the race fees, we're going to fundraise for food, we're going to fundraise for T-shirts, we're going to fundraise for everything else. It's totally up to you with how organized you want to do and how you want to run it. For coaches, coach dues are $35 annually. The background check is $24, one-time fee. The only time you have to redo that background check is if you change team affiliations. If you work with Team A and say, yeah, I'm not working, I'm going to go to Team B, you have to redo your background check. Something to keep in mind here, and this I've been meaning to redo this for a while, it's a little confusing. The Teaching Mountain Bike Skills Clinic is a part of the summit, and our leader summit is going to be 125 to 150. Basic first aid and CPR, again, that's if we have enough people that need us to put something together, we will put together a class. but you can get that anywhere at a Red Cross or any organization like that. If you have an existing certification from a reputable organization, we will accept it. Wilderness first aid training, that's a lot more expensive. Again, that's not something you need right now. That's something that if you're going for the higher levels of certification, you're going to want to get. So we talked a little about defraying costs. Our league is working on scholarships and grants for kids that have needs. Again, we talked about fundraisers and looking for local sponsors. I neglected to mention that on that jersey, you know how a lot of teams will can sell space on their jersey, you know, to teams. That's something you can definitely do. There are some limits on what we're going to allow you to do, because ultimately we want it to be about the team and less about, you know, looking like the door of a NASCAR race car, right? The team is the number one thing we want to see in the jerseys, but you can definitely sell space in your jerseys. Again, financial aid for coaches, teams, students, all of those things. We're working on that right now, trying to find funding for all of that. Again, we want to remove cost as a barrier as much as we possibly can. So what's next? And we're winding down to the end of our presentation here. We have the link to the sign-up sheet. Please sign that out and let us know what you're interested in. Checking out our website. Follow us on Facebook. We're probably more active on Facebook than we are on the website. The sign-up sheet also allows you to enter your information. We'll sign you up for a Single Track Times newsletter, which comes out monthly. The big thing is we just need to know folks' intentions. I've thrown a lot of information out there. If you already know that I'm going to get a team going in my area, this is something I want to do, let us know. And we'll have some conversations, and we'll see what we can do to help facilitate that. And really, coaches are the heart and soul of this. You know, we put together a program, we bring it to North Carolina, but ultimately, it's going to be the coaches, the volunteers, the people that are working directly with kids make this happen in the most impactful way. We need more people to help us get more kids on bikes. There are other volunteer positions we're looking for. Most notable is our sponsorship director. We don't have someone in that position, and at-large board members or program managers. If you want to work with the league at a statewide level, we would love to have you. Reach out. We'll have conversations around that one. The final thing I want to talk to you about is the Crank Sisters Outreach Program. Again, I'm in this because of my little girl. And one of the numbers I saw was that 8,000 kids riding, only 19% of those student athletes were girls. And when you look at girls' participation in sports, I'm of two minds. One is 19%. That's great. And the second thing that hits me is that's also kind of sad and depressing that it's so few, right? Women make up more than half of our population, and they're just massively underrepresented in sport. So what we're starting with is a program that inspires young women to build confidence and empowerment through off-road cycling. And the Crank Sisters isn't just the girls on the team. It's all girls participate in the league. All girls participate in the Crank Sisters event. It's all women who volunteer in the league as coaches, ride leaders, and other roles. Really, we're looking for women to say, I want to be a part of this as well, that are committing to help increase our numbers and get these girls out there. And we're going to kick this off at our Leader Summit. But really the core of this is when you have any organization, any group of people, any club, any team, you have, if someone who comes into that organization looks at your organization for the first time and they don't see themselves reflected in it, they're probably not going to participate. And how I humorously describe this is that, you know, when we got this thing going, I looked around the room, had a great group of guys that were helping me out. And that's a great thing, and it was also a problem because I had guys. So imagine a young girl walks into the first practice for a team, and all she sees is a room full of high school boys and 4 men with beards that when they dress down look like long-haul truckers. She's going to look at that and go, nope, not the organization for me, because I can't see myself being a part of that. The same thing goes with kids of color. They walk in the room and it's a bunch of people that don't look like them. Only the bravest kids are going to say, I still want to do this anyway. So part of this is making them comfortable with this and reaching out and saying, yeah, we want you here. You're valued here. We're really excited to have you here. And that's a big part of what Crank Sisters is trying to do. Because really, studies have shown that, in particular, women and folks of color, they have to hit around the 30% membership in an organization before their voices are heard and they begin to make an impact on the organization. And we want to get to that number as quickly as possible because we want this league to represent this state in gender and demographic. We want it to look like the state. We want everybody here. So we say more kids on bikes. Our only qualifier to that is middle and high school. If you're a kid, I want you here. And so what Crank Sisters is going to be doing is putting together some events that are girls only. We will be doing girls only skills clinics, girls only rides. When I mentioned race weekend, during the pre-ride section, the practice section, there's going to be a period of time we're going to close the course to all boys, and the girls are going to get out there with female mentors, and they're going to ride the course together and work on those skills together. So that's a big part of the program we're pushing very, very hard.
On behalf of the North Carolina Interscholastic Cycling League, thanks for watching. You can find out more about the league online at northcarolinamtb.org, on Facebook at North Carolina Interscholastic Cycling League. Join us on Instagram at North Carolina MTB or on Twitter at nCarolinaMTB.